And I am the fourth to serve in this role, the second to be elected, and the first Black woman to represent the first district, which is Vallejo. It's about the and like, how do we work to make sure that our communities are thriving, or at least have the options to choose what thriving means? So we had Do You Have 500 Fridays, where people who've never donated to political campaigns were donating $5, $7, $8.
Not only you might have been the first going into bankruptcy, but you're also the first city to come out of bankruptcy. And it was taking steps to reclaim your future. So that's what I see happening. That's why I'm excited about your story. So hello, welcome to the Innovate podcast. I'm your host, Ted Hahs, and I'm here with my guest, Cassandra James. You are supervisor for Solano County.
Yes.
In District 1, right? Representing Vallejo and surrounding.
Representing Vallejo only. I'm the only supervisor that gets to represent one city.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Just a little bit about myself. Born and raised in San Francisco. So proud to be a San Francisco native. And I come from a military family that was a part of the Great Migration from the South, and actually born right here in the Presidio.
Yeah, we're
at Letterman Army Medical Center, one of the last humans born here in the 80s.
Oh, it's beautiful. Congratulations. Yeah, we're here at the House of Web3 in the Presidio, and our sponsor, Geo, is graciously helping us do this. So.
Yes, and I grew up in the three core communities specifically for Black folks in San Francisco. My mother's side of the family lived in Fillmore, so very familiar with Fillmore, the Harlem of the West. My father's side is from Bayview Hunters Point, and my great-grandmother, Julia Comer, was one of the Big Five in Bayview and fought for the co-op housing and also some of the education institutions to be in Bayview. And I also have family in Lakeview. So just this mix of being from the city and having access to all of these neighborhoods.
We've got quite a heritage. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, and the African Americans have been disproportionately hurt by demographics, by gentrification. And now Vallejo and Solano County is
my new home. I moved to when the Presidio actually shut down their BX. My grandmother loves the BX, so she decided to move to Solano County when they have Travis Air Force Base. And being a displaced, I always say I'm a displaced San Franciscan, I moved to be closer to my grandmother, but also the cost of living, and moved to Vallejo 15 years ago. And I've been a part of just various organizations in Vallejo, and that's where I was blessed to have given birth to the next generation of Vallejo and Solano County. And both of my sons are being currently raised there.
Yeah, it's a tragic story. I mean, that's the whole point of Innovate. In the last, however long you want to count it, 3 decades, 4 decades, the Bay Area has created more wealth than any other place in any other time in all of human history. Like, it's incredible, and like I keep saying, it wasn't long ago when this was... we got a supercomputer on our wrist.
Yeah.
I just use it to tell time and distract me, but I could use it for a lot of
my kids on game.
Okay, so you're using it even more. I bought it for all the health, to track my health, but I never end up doing that.
Yeah.
But regardless, this was science fiction not that long ago.
Right.
Now we've changed the world with our innovation.
Yes.
But yet at the same time, you look at human trafficking, you look at systemic poverty, you look at unequal access to justice, homelessness. I mean, that's what's most visible. All these things, food insecurity, like in the Bay Area, it's double the national average. So can we now bring this innovation? That can be depressing, but it can also be inspiring.
Yes. It is very much an aspiring thing. My mom was a teenage mom. She had me when she was 17. My family, although it contradicts my grandfather being
Was she a single mom?
So she was a single mom, and we did use public systems, but it shows the resilience in a community, and it shows how a community can be resourceful. Because when I tell my story to people, yes, my mom was 17 when she had me. Yes, we were on public assistance and we lived in public housing, and even used the housing choice voucher, also known as Section 8. But I'm sitting before you as a county supervisor, serving 93,000 constituents. There can be tragedy in there, but within tragedy, there's always the resilience, and the celebration and the moments where I'm changing a whole generation after me, where my sons will not experience some of the things that I've experienced. So when we're talking about what's happening in the Bay Area, it is folks that have the relationships, but it's also those with the lived experience that can make the conversation real and really shift why certain communities was left out. But when we're at the table, we can have the conversation so that way future generations do not have to be left out of this conversation or can have access to the food and resources and money and housing, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so inspired by leaders like you. Like, we both work with Vanessa Russell, and you're talking about that later about Love Never Fails and their work helping victims of human trafficking. But they have an IT Biz Academy to train people from a background of trauma who've either survived human trafficking or at risk of it. And I always tell them, listen, whatever degree you're getting from this institute, this is a postgraduate.
Yes.
Because the real degree is what you overcame, your lived experience, and here you are. And I'm super encouraged by this trend now because over the last however many years, the economic development has been gentrification. So we built up certain neighborhoods, but just priced others out. But now there's a new group of leaders that are thinking of revitalization, where we lift everybody up. And it's beautiful that you're in Vallejo. Vallejo is just, it's like Sausalito, only not developed yet.
Right.
Gorgeous.
And we have this opportunity here to really innovate Vallejo, and moving forward the city. It's Solano County is one of the most diverse counties in California. And Vallejo is in the top 10 cities, most diverse cities across the nation. So when we're talking about moving from gentrification to revitalization and ensuring that all communities have access to stay within community and take part of innovating the community, whether it is as supporting the small businesses and working with the larger businesses, because we lost the power of the and. And it's like, how do we work with both community and work with both business and work with government and work with faith-based institutions, so that way everyone is at the table to create this community that we deserve. And I think that Vallejo can be the leader, or I know that Vallejo can be the leader in these conversations and actually piecing some of these things together.
So let's talk about, we're going to talk about your vision, but let's talk about the election first, okay?
Yes. The election was, I will say that when you think about running an election, is usually folks who are well established, that have connections, political connections, and community connections.
Have you been in elected position before?
No, I've been appointed to commissions, but I've never been in an elected office.
Okay, so this was your first. You're a rookie.
Yes, I am very much a rookie. Thank you. And when I decided to run, actually, somebody asked me, like, are you interested in running for the Board of Supervisors, or can you see yourself in that seat? And I had to talk to my family first. This wasn't a decision I could make, and it was a 4-month conversation. I'm a sandwich generation. I am raising the next generation with my sons, but I'm also taking care of my grandmother.
Common.
So, and we live in
That's how that's called, the sandwich generation.
Sandwich generation, and taking care of my grandmother. We live in one household that was provided through my grandfather's service because we were able to buy that house through the GI Bill. And so when talking to them, my grandmother was like, are you going to give up your civil service job for this? Because I worked for the city and county of San Francisco. So I had a pension and retirement, and that was good. And her thing was about security. And in our household, you always have to work twice or four times as hard in order to get just the mediocre thing.
Yeah, just to be, yeah.
Just to be
Work twice as hard just to be at the same.
so level, yes. And she was like, "Are you going to give that up?" I don't know about that. And when I talked to my sons and my spouse is like, "Okay, like I believe in you, but what does time look like? Are we still going to have date night?"
So it's a part. My wife's gonna love this. Listen to Cassandra.
And we had to really have these hard conversations around creating a village to support my
I love that.
with the boys. The boys, they go to step practice, they have after school programs. My grandmother has doctor's appointments and things. My partner, he's a executive director for a nonprofit. So it was really getting the village together to support the family when I couldn't be.
So this was significant risk for
Yes,
you.
it was. And when I did get into the race, got into
Now you didn't have to. You could run. You kept your job while you were running.
Oh, I worked full time while I ran.
Okay.
I didn't have the luxury to take off. I have kids.
It came against it, yeah, and you
Yes.
were going against an incumbent.
I was going to
Quite a bit outspent, right?
Yes, I was going against the heir apparent. So the incumbent decided to step down. And she and her father has been a council member there. He was on the board of supervisors in the assembly. So it was a legacy family for running. So I was coming up against this big machine. In the first reporting period, he had raised, I believe, 30,000, not only raised 7,000. So throughout this run, I would walk in the morning from 7 to 9, make my way to work. And then when I got off work, I would be walking, knocking on doors. And we were able to.
So you would walk before work and after work?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I walked, knocked on doors, let people know about the campaign. I activated historically excluded communities where we walked in Vallejo. There's a community, the Country Club Crest. It's one of the first Black neighborhoods in Vallejo, but now it is a mix of Black and brown, still working class. I knocked on every door in that community first before going to a high propensity neighborhood per se. And I was out fundraised 2-1 by the time January came, because this was a prime.
Oh, so you caught up a bit. You over 4-1 at the first report.
See, I was shooting. Yes. We did a classic, one of my favorite Bay Area philosophers, the Loonies. Do you have 5 on it? So we had Do You Have 5 on it Fridays, where people who've never donated to political campaigns were donating $5, $7, $8.
Wow.
Just to, and we were having a conversation around the power of their votes. And why people were spending millions for people not to vote. So, and then I had an opportunity to meet the Bay Area ambassador, E40, who was born and raised in Vallejo, and really talk to him about my vision for Vallejo and the need to change leadership. And he gave me his endorsement, which was a game changer for me, because we still didn't raise as much money, but we were able to get to, again, it's about the community who want to see change in their community, didn't know how, and wanted to relate to a candidate or people who are running. And when March came, I ended up winning the election by nearly 1,000 votes. And I upset it in the system. Yes,
Congrats. Now you're very bullish on faith too. You also activated the faith community. Tell about that strategy.
Yeah, I was born and raised in the church. So, and my grandmother is from Mississippi. So I always say I'm a Southern Baptist, although I'm a West Coast girl. And we went on a church circuit because for me, the foundation of any household is whenever you have troubles, whenever something is going wrong, people usually tend to fall to their knees and pray to God, or they go to church. And what we did was we talked to all the pastors in Vallejo, let them know about the vision and how we can collaborate together. And I went on a church circuit, I call it. So every Sunday I was at a different church speaking to the congregation, and some pastors allowed me to speak from, they invited me up to the pulpit, but I went to the side of the pulpit, very much Southern Baptist. And so didn't want to disrespect the pulpit, but was blessed enough to go before some churches and just really speak to the congregation around the change. And it comes from the South, the soul to the pole movement, but really telling them how important that is. And not only about their vote, but praying for me. This was a trying time for myself and my family because there will be times I'm tired and like still working again, still raising a family, still taking care of my grandmother. And it will be times where I thought, I was like, why did I even do this?
And if you win,
Yes,
you're taking a big risk too.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Wow. See, it's super inspiring. Believe it or not, I am actually very inspired about what's happening politically in the US. Not for the reasons, like I was talking to my kids and the last several elections, half of the country has been very ecstatic and half of the country has been in despair. And it seems like it's going back and forth.
Right.
But I was telling my kids who were in despair, like, I think you're missing the bigger issue here. We just passed peace. We just passed power peacefully. Do you know how rare that is in, the history of humanity? And the bigger issues that our institutions are holding out, despite the fact that, we're becoming more polarized. And what's exciting me is seeing more people get involved. Like like what you said, the power of I love that. And also your election. I mean, from the grassroots, an underdog, no one saw that coming. You crossed, in California, the lines are so different than the rest of the nation. One side of the Democrat, it's other side. It's all there, and you're a moderate there in that midst. But you brought the community together, and it's beautiful.
And the thing about this race is it's nonpartisan. So I didn't have to just focus on Democrats. And again, lifelong Democrat. And I didn't just have to focus on Democrats. It was easy to communicate with. We have shared values and missions and things that we want. But when I spoke with someone who was a Republican, and he told me, he's like, I'm conservative, so convince me. I said, the thing that I heard was that we value work ethic and we value family. So it's not about you being, and I was like ruby red or me being blue. It's more or less about what is the method that we can ensure that everyone can value hard work. Everyone could be successful based off of hard work, and that we have a legacy to pass down to our kids. Like, that's what it's really about. It's just we have different methods on getting to that point, but we could sit down and have a conversation around that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that about you. And that's, what I strive to be. I'm a bridge builder. I believe in unity. My faith deeply motivates me. But, we confuse uniformity and unity.
Yes.
And what I found often, and that was just an example, we have shared values, but we have shared values with everyone. We have a two-party system. It is what it is. You have to embrace, well, not in California. California, you have a one-party system with some minority parties. That's a different start. Okay. We have a two-party system. You have to embrace it, but it's always trying to pull you apart. And I'm like, no, nobody thinks for me, no one party. I don't even agree with myself on most things, So like, if I can't work with someone I don't fully agree with, and to me, I notice that the parties often just give you a mutual signaling language. And if we could get beyond that, we realize that, family, hard work, getting ahead, there's a lot, we can build bridges with things like that.
Yeah, well, we can't. And that's what, like, just taking the party out of it. Again, I grew up in San Francisco, So in Vallejo, they're like, you are a progressive liberal. And I'm like,
So funny. It's so funny.
the idea is like I'm moderate to San Francisco standards. So, oh, but I'm like, but it's not about the party identification. And I understand like there are some keywords within each of the parties, but when we're coming down to it, it's about the end. And like, how do we work to make sure that our communities are thriving, or at least have the options to choose what thriving means for them?
Was that part of your campaign? Hashtag the power of the and.
No, it was not.
You should copyright that. It's like your statement. I love that. That's beautiful. What I see happening in Vallejo, like one of the heartbreaks of me is when I, learning about San Francisco, and you mentioned the hot spots of these thriving communities that have gone through so much challenge. And if they are upgrowing, African Americans are being pushed out. The most heartbreaking one is the Tenderloin, which is now known for drugs and homelessness. It's like, and that was the jazz center for San Francisco back in the day,
Yeah.
And, but what I see is anti-gentrification movement, happening in Vallejo. Like the whole Vallejo got famous for going into bankruptcy. But you on the ground, like your predecessor, Osby Davis, who was the first African-American elected to mayor in a city that is, it's not majority African-American, but have the highest concentration, I believe.
Yeah, so today, Solano County is the blackest county per capita in the Bay Area.
And Vallejo would be one of the
It's, again, Vallejo has the highest black population.
And it's historically had this very strong African-American community, but yet it was, that was 15 years ago before the first African-American was actually elected. And it was really, and he was similar. He went to the faith community. That was the first time the faith community started to get involved in local politics.
Yes.
And, and it was the grassroots, the people inside.
Right.
And him, not only you might have been the first going into bankruptcy, but you're also the first city to come out of bankruptcy. And it was taking steps to reclaim your future. So that's what I see happening. That's why I'm excited about your story. So how are you going to reclaim the future of Vallejo and Solano County?
And that's such a big question. And just to circle back to Osby, he was actually the first African-American elected to the Board of Supervisors in Solano County in the 80s. And Lewis Brown was actually the first African-American elected official in Solano County back in the 70s. So there has been 9 Black elected officials in Vallejo specifically. But I wanted just to highlight, and then 4 have sat on the Board of Supervisors. So with Osby being the first elected, Ruth Forner being appointed, but she lost her reelection, Wanda Williams being the second Black woman ever elected to the being the first Black woman ever elected to the Board of Supervisors, and she currently sits on the Board of Supervisors. And I am the 4th to serve in this role, the second to be elected, and the first Black woman to represent the 1st district, which is Vallejo. And when we're talking about the future, I have to recognize the shoulders that I stand on and the journey that I'm continuing on. So when we're talking about Vallejo as a whole, Vallejo is the last affordable city with the waterfronts. And it's a gorgeous waterfront.
Beautiful.
Yes, where specifically like Black and brown folks can build generational wealth. And when I'm leaning forward into that, it's looking at how are we a part of the larger Bay Area economy and conversation? And it's things like doing this today and going to the Isla of San Francisco. And also me reaching out to the Bay Area as a whole with my connections. It's been a blessing for me to born and raised in San Francisco and having work history here, because I know we're going to talk about human trafficking later. I used to work with young women involved in the underground street economy and women in lockup through the Young Women's Freedom Center. So it's really important to have Vallejo. we have to tell our story. We have to create that narrative in saying we are open for business. We are open to seeing how you can contribute to the community. We have a fairgrounds that have been underutilized. So how can we invest in the fairgrounds, which is right across the street from Marine World, or excuse me, Six Flags. So, how do we invest in there? Is that a convention center? Is that hotels? Is there opportunity for hubs for small businesses? And I look to the Chase Center and how the Warriors built the Chase Center in the middle of Dog Patch, which used to be a part of Baby Hunters Point, and how they pulled people from community to be a part of this planning process. And they also tapped into community. So they had access to some of the economy that will be circling through the Chase Center. That's the vision that I see for Vallejo, with connecting the fairgrounds to the waterfront. We also have our ferry. To Sassoon has a winery valley now. It's not just in that, but we have wineries in Solano County. And helping people to, again, not to displace anyone, ensuring that people have access to funds to invest in their homes, so beautification projects. And we have some amazing, and if I could go back to our faith-based leaders, we have some amazing faith-based leaders that are in the trenches of the city that are doing the work. From beautification projects, there is one, they go to seniors, owned by
Cassandra James, who are they?
Apostle, because I always call him Pastor Summers, Apostle Summers. He has Helpy Vallejo, where they take
Anthony Summers?
Oh, it's my man.
Yeah,
I worked with him with I worked with Michael Brown before he came on staff with Michael Brown. I love Anthony Summers. Yeah.
He has Helpy Vallejo, where there are, again, youth from disenfranchised communities or historically excluded communities, and they help homes owned by seniors. They do their landscaping for them. Or he does various beautification projects. There's another Pastor Bishop Harris, who every Monday turns the church parking lot into a hub for economically low income residents and unhoused residents. So they could come and either take a shower, get clothes, get food. And quarterly, I believe he does the glasses and the blood test. There's another pastor, Bishop Winston. He has his financial center and he owns the funeral home there and provides affordable service for families. But he also has the Nazareth House, which is right off of Sonoma, to help those with substance who are substance dependents. So we have these amazing leaders, faith-based community leaders. And if I could go and just highlight Orlando Graham, who is the mayor of the Crest, and who serves children, youth, and their families every day.
He's the mayor of the Crest, so that's like his affectionate title.
Yes, that's his affectionate title. Or Uncle Lando, what the kids call him. Even my sons call him that. And every Thursday and Saturday, they're feeding the community, or they are taking kids to school if the parents' car broke down. So these things are happening. Or even now, even shout out, because I would be remiss, I don't even shout out my own spouse, like Cameron Clark, who works with formerly incarcerated individuals and helping them navigate the systems in order to be stable once exiting prison and jail. There's so many key leaders and organizations and things that are happening. It's just having them woven together.
It's interesting because you're touching on my heart and the whole vision for Innovate, because as I look into this, we need to bring greater innovation into the social services sector, how we take care of each other, really, how we treat each other. But as I've dove in and looked into that, there are some of the most incredible innovators, like people you're talking about, who are doing it and helping people and doing it like the startup hustle. They don't have any resources. They're just finding the resources. They have passion and they make it happen, and they make, a dollar stretch so far.
Right.
The challenge is there's no mechanism all of them, I find it very, all of them are fighting just to survive. It's very difficult to grow, much less scale. We need to bring the system, we need to reform the system, because if you look at it, Vallejo, is got people who are really incredible. But you zoom out as a society,
Right.
the issues we're addressing, like human trafficking, homelessness, we're losing the game.
Yes.
So we've got to, and what I believe the secret is, and this is a forerunner. You're here, you're at the House of Web3, you're on the Innovate podcast, you're going to be sharing at We Heart SF to a bunch of technologists. If we can get the creative young technologists and AI and Web3, if we can get elected officials, if we can get the faith community, and then these subject matter experts that know so much and they don't even know how much they know, it's like, they're doing this amazing work on the ground. If we can get everyone together, pointed in the same direction, unified, not uniform, we need to be diverse. That's the whole power. But pointed in the same direction and not arguing and fighting,
Right.
Having constructive criticism, growing together, that's when the magic happens. That's when we can transform the community. And that's our big vision.
Yes, and I believe that's happening now in Vallejo because, again, I still live in the Crest. So I still have access to all of these leaders, and I have an open door policy. So where it's like, what are things that you need in order to thrive? Who do I need to go talk to? How do I use the power of this office to highlight what's happening at a macro level and a micro level? Because, again, when we're talking about Solano County and Vallejo in particular, I could talk about the fairgrounds project. We could talk about the waterfront. We could talk about how our downtown businesses need additional support and help. And I know that staff does not have necessarily the capacity. But when we're talking about these things at a macro level, we need the data and the support to really have to be data informed on how we move forward, and then going down to the micro level of what's happening in the community, because there is still a community that's working when all of these macro things are happening. And that's why I'm excited. And you brought up human trafficking. I'm just excited about working with Vanessa and Love Never Fails, because we have Vallejo is, I will say, again, this is coming from a city girl, and I know that San Francisco often is centered when we're talking about the Bay Area, but Vallejo is truly the heart of the Bay Area, because you can't get to your state capital without going through Vallejo. You can't get to your tech hub without going.
Wasn't Vallejo the first capital of
The first and second capital
of our state, right?
Yes. So Vallejo is truly.
Don't you have the oldest golf course?
Yes, we do have one of the oldest golf courses.
I thought it was the oldest golf course south west of the Mississippi.
And yeah, and my alma mater, Mills College, was started in Solano County in Benicia before moving to Oakland.
Well, stand those you. We could correct history, bring out some of the forgotten pieces. Yeah.
Yes. No, but and also Vallejo has sovereign water too. So they are one of the only cities in our state with water rights as old as the state. So and that's just
I believe it. I'm very, very bullish on Vallejo. Yeah.
Yeah, but when we're talking about it, it's truly the heart of it, and we have the 80 corridor there. That's the most traveled corridor in Northern California. So, and looping in human trafficking, that's why it's become one of the hot spots for human trafficking.
No,
on the West Coast.
That's true leadership. Unwavering vision in this great, unwavering faith and conviction in this great vision, but you're willing to look, and you look the truth in the face. And I love the fact that, we can be so bullish on Vallejo, but the reality is these dark economic trends have moved in there.
Yes.
And it's very, very evil. And what's happening with human trafficking will just, turn your stomach.
Right.
And I love the fact that you're not just going for this great vision and ignoring the dark side. You're facing it head on. So tell me more about the project and what's happening. Or maybe it's too soon to say it's a project. What's
I wouldn't say that it's too soon. It's a project. When you have the conversation about it, it becomes a project. Whether we continue it or not, that's the thing. Right now, so Vallejo has become one of the hotspots when we're talking about human trafficking because, and I had to learn that. Vanessa Russell from Love Never Fails gave me some data where I see it every day, but I didn't realize that we were one of the hotspots. When I thought of hotspots, I thought of Oakland. So
Oakland, San Francisco, and Vallejo are the three hot spots. And you talked to Vanessa, and there's a huge need for education. So I'm glad I was talking to another very well-educated elected official, and it was eye-opening. They had not, they did not know. So I referred them to Vanessa and particularly our podcast on Innovate. So, that's one of the things we have to educate ourselves to what's going on.
And that's one of the first things. And I always did a podcast yesterday with Solano moms, and they were like, "You are a jack of all trades." I'm like, "No, I go to the subject matter experts." So with Vanessa, she has walked me through this process of what it looks like in Solano County, and we've created a table where we have nonprofit. There are elected officials at the county level and city level and faith-based leaders and churches where we're now having conversations around what can be done to help curb the human trafficking that's happening in our community. And we had I would join Vanessa in Sacramento to talk about one of the bills 1414 and really highlighting what was happening again.
It was a milestone bill.
Yeah, it was a milestone bill. And I know Vanessa said it didn't go far enough, but we've got our first step.
Welcome to politics. It's the science of the possible. You take steps and you compromise and you take a step in that direction. But it was the first bill to make, I know it's the first bill in California. It might be the first bill beyond that, but the first bill to make purchasing sex with a minor a felony.
Yes.
Which, to me, that's the biggest no-brainer.
Right. And we have that bill, and I was able to join Vanessa and Senator Grove, and I believe and two other assembly women, and I forgot their name, or their name escapes me right now, and survivors and other nonprofit leaders to really highlight the bill and how it impacts us locally. So that was the first step. And then the second step is we created now this table where I'm excited that you are with us to really pull in the data and highlight the issue in Solano County and Vallejo. And our next step is everyone has a busy schedule, but our next step is to have another meeting and really present Love Never Fails before the Vallejo City Council. I'm excited that, and I know Dr. T don't mind me name dropping her, but Dr. Tanya Letaju is also at the table. She is elected to the Vallejo City Council and is amazing.
You guys have an amazing group. You have an incredible team.
Mm-hmm. And she helped us, and there was a recent issue where she navigated that issue.
Yeah, you want to talk about that? Just after we were talking about this and saying we need to take action, the first conversation about that, the very next day, Vanessa got a call from a mother, desperate, whose daughter had been trafficked since October, and she knew where she was at and knew what happened after, but wasn't getting any progress. What happened?
So when we got the information, I know my role at the county and I can't impact city business, but Dr. Tanya, but Dr. T, as I love to call her, and I had conversation, and she led the charge and speaking with the police chief and the city manager and the key stakeholders in order to get her back home, to get the child back home. And it was ongoing conversations or touch points with Vanessa with the mother, with our systems to get her back home. And we seen how the system, there were some holes in the system. And now, after the fact, Dr. T has taken it upon herself to make sure that this does not happen again. And that if any parent calls our police or city manager or staff, that this is addressed because she was our child. We say she's our child. She came from our schools. She lived in our city.
That's Vanessa's superpower, and I love hearing you say that because that's the attitude. I mean, particularly as a person of faith, I mean, that's what I'm challenging. We have to go beyond this is somebody else's issue. It's not happening here. Well, it's overseas. All of that to realize, no, these could be our children.
Yeah.
And they are our children. We need to take that. That's like, I've described this as a small step in the right direction. In that sense, it was a small victory because there's lots of issues. Our police are underfunded, understaffed, and traffickers there's so much money behind it and there's all this stuff when we're unaware and it's very, very complicated issue. And then you have the Stockholm syndrome that whole thing. It's like, so this was wonderful but we need to be sober about a small step. Right. But on the other hand, I don't think it was small for that mother. No, I don't think it was small. I think it was huge for them,
And it also highlights some our concerns with our systems and how do we effectively address that. So although it may be like it's a small victory, but it highlighted or magnified the issues within our systems, and that it takes it upon ourselves in our collective. How do we address that so that it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, but there's a saying that comes to mind. I think it's a Jewish saying, he who saves one life saves the universe entire. Yes. That's the attitude we have to say for that mom. It was everything, and that daughter's going to have a long journey to get out of that and to be healed of all that. But, praise God.
Yes.
Yeah. So, wow. I love this. You took action. I like to say I have a bias towards action. And out of the action, you won a victory, and then you saw all the pitfalls, all the holes, and now you're taking action. Okay, let's address each of those holes. And once we do that, let's review the system again and see how it can improve even greater. So now let's talk about, you're here at the House of Web3. You're going to talk with a bunch of brilliant young Web3 technologists, AI technologists. Technology is bringing a massive disruption, and AI is going to be, like one of the big employers in Vallejo is Michael's Transportation, our friend.
Yes.
They employ a lot of people, and there's lots of people employed as commercial drivers. But now we got these Waymo taxis driving around these robot cars, which is like. Yes. A weird, no driver. Now it's becoming normal, which is even more weird for you. Pretty soon, eventually, we don't have a timeline, but they're going to take over commercial driving. And that's going to be a massive amount of people that are going to be disrupted.
Right.
And, the robot maids are going to start taking over maid jobs.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the people that are hurt the worst are the poor. And so, tell me, what are some of your visions, your ideas? How are you going to make Vallejo a leader in addressing these challenges that are coming?
I believe that Vallejo is already a leader in some of these challenges, although it's not talked about much. We house the Maritime Working Waterfront Coalition, where they're training folks. We know that robots are coming or automation is coming. I'm a geriatric millennial, so I know technology, but I don't know technology. But we have this Working Waterfront Coalition that are training communities, specifically targeting like historically excluded communities, folks from those communities, to do some maritime jobs, in addition to how to use the technology in order to advance some of this. Well, we have our building trades, our Napa Solano building trades and labor council that recognize the power of technology and green economy that have already started partnering with different organizations in the Bay Area to teach high school juniors and seniors how to use technologies with if they wanted to go into a trade. There are community college, and I always forget the degree, but you can get a 4-year like bioengineering degree from our community college.
Oh, okay.
And it's a program that's
So you're reinventing education.
yes,
I love that.
yes, and currently our Maritime Academy, our CSU Maritime Academy, is being merged with San Luis Obispo SLO. So they're merging the institutions together, and that's another opportunity where we can work with our school board at the local level and the county level to really push the fact that technology be taught in school. And I would go even personal with my son. I have a 11-year-old as of yesterday, and
You just turned 11?
he just turned.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And in his school, they talk about them being trilingual, like English, Spanish, and technology, and really infusing that in like K through 8th education. So this is becoming secondhand. So that way, and his school is um, majority black and brown kids, to where it's really being taught as a part of curriculum. So that way they're not graduating without some of these key, like my son knows how to code. And he's 11, and he taught me this cool thing on my phone to how to exchange numbers and how to so he knows how to code at 11. So if this is a field that he wants to go into, because it's more about just the technology of what we see, it's behind it of like who's putting the codes together, who's creating these innovative ideas, how do we bring them to our community. And those are the things that I could keep fighting for and keep highlighting.
I love this. This is very, very exciting. I think this is the cutting edge of education.
Yeah.
Our educational system is baroque, and I think this is the future. And I'd love to help you with that. Like, love never fails. Are you familiar with the IT Biz Academy that they have?
She highlighted it for me, but I'm not.
So originally we opened an IT Biz Academy because Vanessa's background is from Cisco. So she's a technologist, a woman of color like you. So she was, a forerunner in that. And so she's like, if they're going to be vulnerable unless we get them a job.
Right.
What we soon found, though, is the IT Biz Academy had a niche far bigger than that. Training everyone. What they do is technically called trauma-informed training.
Oh, wow.
And they're very, very good at it. But the one of the things that came out, which is to me a highlight of a bigger principle, it turns out survivors of trauma are better than the general population as cybersecurity. Which makes sense, because they've been hypervigilant their whole lives. And so they've turned their trauma once they get equipped, they turn it into a positive thing. I feel there are so many more, like what I keep hearing, you have, there's, DEI is all, very, very, we love to fight as Americans, and that's something we're fighting over now. And, we need to scrutinize it. We need to have data-informed policies. But to me, what you're showing and what I believe is happening is like Thurgood Marshall, and the school that he grew up in, they educated the civil rights lawyers, of which he, ended up becoming, one of the best of them. Their teachers told them, you're going to have to work twice as hard, be twice as prepared, twice as articulate just to get your foot in the door. They've already decided against you. They dislike you. They're prejudiced against you. That's the facts. Now we're going to train you harder. Our classes are going to be harder than the opposition you face. Right. Grow up and take it. And they embraced that, and it created these incredible lawyers. Yes. I mean, that really inspires me. And I see you guys doing that in Vallejo, in education, and you're going to be on the cutting edge, getting these these PhDs and lived experience, trained in technology, and the ideas that are going to come out of them. And here you are building relationships with the best of the best in San Francisco. You're at the House of Web3. You're with Chio and the Graph, and now we have We Heart SF. So great job. So this is I thank you so much for letting me interview you and being on the show. We'll have to do it again. Keep updated. Some closing words. What do you want to say to that young girl, the younger you out there?
That is, you just like inspired me or reminded me, because when you talk about Thurgood Marshall and them having to work twice or four times as hard, like that's the generation that raised me. And I want to tell that young girl, it doesn't, anyone, you define your journey. No one can define it for you. And I often share this. I have an associate's degree. Then I transferred and got my bachelor's degree. And I did that while working full time and raising kids. And no one can take that hard work, that work ethic from you. So define your journey, find your niche, and also be open to mentorship. Just be authentic and have fun along the way. So those will be my last words.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this show, subscribe, share this with a friend. I mean, these are lessons. These are insights. These are stories that need to be told. Let's bring greater innovation into the problems that matter most. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.